Hello, I'm Max Senior, and in this series of programmes called Max Chats, I'll be chatting to some of the interesting people from the Barnsley area who have something to tell us about their life, their hobbies or projects, which I hope that you will find both informative and entertaining. My guest on today's programme is Ian Davison, who is interested in the history of the ancient Bretton Priory, which is situated near Lundwood. Ian, having gained a 2-1 honours degree in philosophy and modern languages at Huddersfield Polytechnic, Ian worked at York Archaeological Trust's world-renowned Jorvik Viking Centre, and he also worked in the Museum for Barnsley MBC Cultural Services. Ian came into our studios earlier, and I began by asking him how he found out about the Priory in the first place.
We Royston lads went out exploring a lot of old industry and agriculture and things like that, Walton, Notton, all that kind of area. When my cousin got an apprenticeship with Barnsley Council, he discovered Bretton Priory. And so we were teenagers and we thought, well, we'll explore that. We went in detail, you know, and I love that there was the steps and doorways and all this. And it was also obviously an historical building really near to where I lived. 2 bus rides at most, you know.
Tell me, what's the history of the Priory and why was it built in Bretton?
Well, you'll see that it's on the edge of Lundwood. What it is, in Doomsday, there are estates which are marked waste, and that means that their English lord has been killed or whatever. There's no one to run agriculture, so they're not worth anything. Guillaume de Normandy, William the Conqueror, he brought over monks from continent because the monks are the ones who could really run agriculture very well. His right-hand man at Tanshelf, that they later called Pontefract, he was Ilbert de Lacy. He brought Cluniacs and they set up St John's Priory there. There was an English lord still working for de Lacy's there, Aelric. His grandson was in Barnsley area, although it was just a little village at that time, and he wanted the Priory. Down in Lundwood, the flat Lundland there was a mill and a hermitage, so he said, I'm using that land there as a gift, and it was a daughter house of that Priory in Pontefract.
So where did the Cluniacs come from, Ian?
Well, France. Almost
okay.
Everyone of those systems came from France, but with the Cluniacs there were quite a few Spanish, and so there was Spanish growing licorice in Pontefract, and so there were French and Spanish monks.
Yes. Interesting. All that way from France to set up a priory in Barnsley.
Yeah.
At that time, I think it was called Berners-ley, but that's another story.
Yeah, it's a little settlement on a hill.
So, obviously, you're part of a group. When was the group formed and why? Who else is involved in all this? I mean, at some point, this group set up to form whatever it's called. You tell us what it's called.
Well, it's Friends of Bretton Priory. Now, there have been lots of attempts to do this in recent times. There's a lady who lives near Bretton, and she was interested in doing something about Priory. She'd heard so many people saying somebody ought to do something. She came to an environment meeting set up by Barnsley Council, Environment Forum in 2002, and she said, I have a plan to set up a friends group, get in funding and do something about it.
Right.
So at first it was local residents, politicians, and then we started getting in local historians, Dennis Ashurst, Gerald Elliott and so on. Yeah. These days we're all academics. We have specialist fields, like say castles, monasteries or whatever.
But I remember as a small child from school being taken down to Bretton Priory, and we walked around the grounds with little clipboards, and we were told also, and it was part of our curriculum, right? And I'm going back to the 50s.
Yes.
So even in those days, schools in Barnsley were quite interested in the Bretton Priory as it was. But it's good to know that there are people that's trying to keep this going.
Right.
Now I understand that mystery plays have been organised at the Priory.
Yes.
What are these about, Ian?
Right.
Just explain.
Oh, well, the mystery is a skill for your particular kind of trade. So you have the metal workers, they have their mystery, the leather workers and so on. It's their skill set that they know for themselves, like a guild. So it means that originally these plays, which are religious plays, were done by different guilds. Ours is a Wakefield one, and there was pressure on from folk asking us, why can't we have the Worsborough mystery plays that John Kelly put together on at Bretton Priory? So eventually we decided to have a go at that. Then Bill Newman from Barnsley Council, cultural spokesman, he said, I think I can get John Kelly in on it, and that's how it all started.
Well, let's just have a clip about what we're talking about, the mystery plays themselves. Surely, because they're outside, Ian, weather must play an important part in this.
Right.
Now, I understand that there's been times when the weather's not been conducive to the plays themselves, and it's been rather inclement. In fact, I think the viewers will have seen that it can rain when there's a mystery play on.
when I talk about this, I say we were told by English Heritage this was the biggest outdoor theatrical event in Europe in 2009, and I say that, and I say, and it rained for 4 days. Everyone stayed there. The audience were in really good mood. We handed out rain covers. We went round audience handing out hats.
Now I understand that you've got an actual leaflet.
Yeah, this is the leaflet for it.
These are handed out to the people that go along to the mystery plays, and it explains all about what the mystery plays are about. I can tell you, they are quite interesting. So if you feel like going along to one, next time one's on, make sure you get down there and have a look at a mystery play and see what it's all about. Yeah. Thanks for that, Ian. I'll hang on to that if that's all right.
Certainly.
So let's move on. Now the Priory and its grounds, which are lovely by the way, I do know that they're quite vulnerable, aren't they, really? And so over time they have suffered periods of vandalism. And I know recently, as recently as a couple of weeks or so ago, there was some real bad damage, real bad vandalism in the grounds. What I know it's a big problem. So what's the group trying to do about this?
Well, getting those school trips up again should help to solve this problem. What I find is that older residents who went as school kids hold this place with some affection. The youngsters, it's just a pile of old stones, a symbol of authority, you know. So we're going to try to get our school trips organised, Key Stage 1 and 2, to help start that. And then I'm going to be doing talks of an evening to local residents about the things about the Priory, its history, its buildings and so on, to give them a sense of ownership. And the third part about it is just getting more events on, so folk are glad to come, they like it, and they'll say, let's look after it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's all psychological. We can't do anything with physical barriers.
No. Right, that's interesting. So, for the future then, what does the future really hold for Bretton Priory? I know that you're probably considering a World Heritage bid and getting the community involved.
Yeah.
And I've been asked myself, well, is there any plans to actually try and rebuild Bretton Priory? I mean, that would be wonderful, but I don't suppose that's on the cards, is it, Ian?
Right. No, it is. I mean, we have a model built by our oldest member, that's Cyril Hall, who moved into Lundwood when the village was first built in 1930s. So we have this huge model. Right, so for the future of this place, it's more community involvement, because an organisation called Jolly Good Communities, that's come from local authority work, they're surveying online, social media and at events to find out what folk need. So they're going to be putting on a lot more events and getting them in. We think we'll be able to do some on-site development.
Right,
English
that's
Heritage,
interesting.
yeah. English Heritage might be able to convert that cottage into a cafe, get some storage, and we have a big building with a roof that could be a meeting place.
So just before we finish then, Ian, volunteers, I just want to touch on this.
Yes.
How many volunteers are involved? And before we put it on the screen, if anyone's interested in becoming a volunteer, how many volunteers do you have at the moment?
Right, in Friends of Bretton Priory, which is the kind of the academic side of it, we have, say, 10 regulars and experts that call in. Jolly Good Community, which put everything on, they have about 15 volunteers, and not all regulars with,
But they are nevertheless volunteers of Bretton.
Right, and they just turn up for fun or get involved with what events on, things like that, and they all seem to have a good time.
So, for the benefit of the viewers, if you care to look at the bottom of the screen, you will see how to get in touch with the actual Bretton volunteers and their society, and how you can possibly get involved in a wonderful, wonderful, historical, for me personally, historical building or buildings which needs really to be preserved. Ian, you've been quite illuminating that. Thanks very much.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Ian Davison then, bringing us up to date with the work being carried out at Bretton Priory, with some interesting facts thrown in for good measure, as I'm sure you noticed. Now, on the next Max Chats programme, my guest will be Ian Stringer, who is a keen railway enthusiast and is especially interested in model railways, having built a large garden railway system at his home. Watch out for that feature coming your way soon. Now, in the meantime, from me, Max Senior, bye for now.